All right, if you're anything like me, you hate running out of food on a trip. It's like a big fear, and so I'm a big fan of snacks during an adventure, and one of my absolute favorite go-to snacks are wonderful pistachios. You may be familiar with pistachios and the brand Wonderful Pistachios, but if you're not, they are one of the highest protein nuts out there. 1 ounce serving of Wonderful Pistachios is 6 grams of protein. That's 10% of your daily value. It also includes 9 essential amino acids, and they come with a ton of different flavors, varieties. There's a spicy version, there's lightly salted, there's no salted, there's so many, and every time I go on an adventure, I'm not even lying, I take an entire bag with me. And what's cool too, I love having the Wonderful Pistachio in shell, because then that almost gives me something to do and focus on as I'm paddling or biking through the really monotonous parts of the adventure. Every great adventure is going to have plenty of boring moments, and it's nice to have something to do and also something that is giving you some fuel, like Wonderful Pistachios. So they're one of my favorite adventure snacks, favorite road trip snacks, and definitely leave me feeling better than a lot of other snacks you can turn to. So if you want to learn more about how to fuel your next adventure with Wonderful Pistachios, go to wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. I love a good deal as much as the next person, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be relatively easy, no hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called BS on them. Well, turns out it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. It is super easy to switch your wireless carrier to Mint Mobile. They got a great website, easy to purchase, get your phone activated. If you're looking to work with Mint Mobile, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. And you'll see how to sign up for one of their 3-month plans that are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months on premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/ASP. That's mintmobile.com/ASP. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower at 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional tax, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. I live in the incredibly hot Florida sun, and I end up going with a lot of friends to paddle and bike and hike, and it is hugely dehydrating. And it is so important to have very convenient and accessible hydration options, something more than water, which is why I'm a huge fan of Liquid IV. It is so easy, it's convenient to tear, open one of their packets, pour it into my water, shake it up, and enjoy it, and know that I am getting what I need for fast hydration. It tastes better than just water by itself. And like I said, incredibly lightweight. It has some pretty fun flavors like popsicle firecracker and rainbow sherbet. I know hydration is important for any adventure, not just when you're in somewhere hot, but anytime you're sweating, that needs to be an essential part of your adventure planning process. So if you want to add Liquid IV to your adventure equipment and make sure you stay hydrated on your next adventure, go to liquidiv.com and use the code ASP at checkout for 20% off your very first order of Liquid IV. Again, 20% off your first order for better hydration. Go to liquidiv.com and use the code ASP at checkout. Hey folks, today's Throwback Thursday episode is going to go back to the early days of the podcast, 2016. This is when Travis was hosting the show with Whitney Allgood LaRuffa, talking about coming across a dog while thru-hiking the Appalachian Trail back in 1996. And that dog, Erwin, continued to hike with Whitney for 13 years. And this might sound a little bit similar to the recent episode Finding Gobi. That was last week, episode 1049 with Dion Leonard. That one was similar. Came across a dog out on a run in Mongolia, an ultra run, and yeah, became best friends. And that was an unbelievable story, amazing book. Probably going to be a film about it someday. So this is similar, a little different, but I remember this being a great episode. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll be coming at you with a brand new episode on Monday.
Hi, welcome back to the Adventure Sports Podcast. This is your host, Travis. With me today is Whitney LaRuffa, also known as Allgood. And because Allgood is a trail name, you probably already figured out that Whitney is a thru-hiker. Whitney has a pretty long list of accomplishments I'm looking at here. Back when he was 18 in 1996, he did his first thru-hike of the Appalachian Trail. After that, he apparently kind of latched on to a love, or discovered a love for it, because he went on to be a ridge runner for the Appalachian Trail. He section hiked the Allegheny Trail. He summited Mount St. Helens, Mount Adams, and Mount Hood, all in the Cascades. He also thru-hiked the John Muir Trail, the Wonderland Trail, and he's done a Timberline Trail thru-hike. Tahoe Rim Trail, and he's currently kind of working on section hiking the PCT. But where we caught up with him is in the middle of the Continental Divide Trail. So Whitney we found in Pine, Colorado, taking a little bit of a break and resupplying before he keeps en route. But he's been doing this for 2 months now, hiking from south to north. So Whitney, thanks for joining me, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Travis.
Yeah,
pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So I love catching up with people in the middle of their hike. I mean, you guys, everything is fresh in your mind. You're experiencing it right now. Like I said, you're in the middle of a resupply in Pine before you head out again.
Yep.
You started 2 months ago to the day, I believe.
Just about. Yeah, April 18th we started down at the border in Crazy Cook.
Okay. Yeah, so you've been on the trail 2 months, and I was looking through your blog. You're keeping a blog, and for those that want to follow along as they're listening to this, you can check out Whitney's blog at the dago-diaries.com. That's DAGO diaries.com. So Whitney is keeping an up-to-date blog, and if you guys have ever thought about hiking the CDT or any thru-hike, this is an awesome resource just to go get a feel for what it's like, a day in a life of a thru-hiker. So check out his blog and see his accomplishments.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's not easy, and sometimes you're writing that blog at night and you're like, God, is this boring people? I'm just talking about like what I did for the day, but the folks at home seem to tell me that they appreciate it, and they like to see that a snapshot of what it's really like out there day after day. So it's not all unicorns and fairy tales. It's hard work, and some days you're going to suffer a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw where you're post-holing through some pretty deep snow, even here in June. That's that's kind of rough. Get up there and everything's it's about 102 degrees down here in Boulder, and then you find out you got a ton of snow up there to deal with. So, but I guess you're kind of prepared for that stuff. You know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know what you're dealing with, but still, I mean, I'm kind of a shorter, heavier thru-hiker, and when you're post-hole all day with snowshoes on, at times up to your waist, it gets pretty frustrating after a couple hours.
Yeah, I'll bet. Slogging through that stuff, it gets exhausting.
Yeah, we're ready for the snow to be gone. We're happy to see this heat wave show up in the last week.
At least some of us are.
Yeah, exactly. We're happy in the high country about it. Maybe not down here in the Front Range.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's go back to your beginnings. Like I said in your intro, you started out at 18 years old. You decided to, I guess it was, take a little time off before you went to college, and you wanted to thru-hike the AT, and you're from that area. So let us in on that a little bit. Paint a little picture of your background and how this all started.
Yeah, I think I grew up mostly in New England my whole life until I was in high school, but very active in Boy Scouts growing up. And when I did a lot of stuff in the White Mountains growing up and learned about the Appalachian Trail, and at like 14, I really wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail. And my parents were like, well, you're 14, you're not leaving home to go hike. So they kind of made a deal with the devil that if I could graduate early and still go to college on time and pay for it myself, I could go hike the Appalachian Trail. So for 4 years in high school, I didn't have lunch, and I graduated a semester early in high school, and I worked a job at night as a restaurant, as a busboy, and then as a cook, and came home every week, gave my mom the money, saved up, and when I was 18, I took off from home in March and finished hiking 3 days before I had to get to college at Virginia Tech.
Man, that's some serious motivation.
Yeah, I guess I've always been a pretty goal-orientated, motivated individual, but it was just something that I really wanted to do in life, and it was just to me it seemed like kind of the be-all, end-all, And I just knew I had to do it. So, I put a lot of hard work in it to get to that point, but, I have no regrets looking back on it. It's the best decision I ever made because it really changed my life for the rest of my life and really kind of set a precedent of what I would get involved with. You mentioned earlier I was a ridge runner for 2 years on the Appalachian Trail. Virginia Tech at the time maintained 47 miles of the Appalachian Trail, and I was the trail boss for 3 years for the Outdoor Club of Virginia Tech. So from a pretty early age on, in 1996 on, I've been heavily involved in long distance hiking in one form or the other, whether as a hiker or as a volunteer maintaining trails and helping other hikers get out there.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, you've definitely built a life on educating people about through hiking as well. I see you're president of the American Long Distance Hiking Association, the Western Division. Yeah, so that's cool.
Actually, we are our own organization. We're the American Long Distance Hiking Association West, and we're the home of the Triple Crown Award. And a previous guest you've had on, Liz Thomas, Snorkel, she's our vice president, and she's currently filling in for me while I'm out here through hiking. So.
Oh, very cool.
She's kind of keeping the ship afloat while I'm away. So.
Well, good for that. Yeah, Liz is kind of a veteran on the show at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I've listened to a couple of her episodes, and she's just a great person. And like a little sister to me, it's been really nice to be able to step away for 5-6 months and do a hike and know that everything on that front's being taken care of without having to worry about it.
Yeah, it's cool. You guys all seem to have a kind of a tight-knit community between all you guys. You're one way or another, you're connected, and that's kind of envious. I think that's very cool to see.
Yeah, the long distance hiking world's a very unique place because I think it takes people from all different walks of life and backgrounds. And hiking is kind of the great equalizer. Mother Nature doesn't care who you are, or how much money you made, or what you did. Once you're out there, you're all subjected to the same things, and I think you really just appreciate simple things in life, and that's what kind of brings us all together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then people, certain people you just gravitate towards, and they become like family. And Liz and I 2 years ago pioneered the Chinook Trail through the Columbia River Gorge, and we did like a 300-mile hike no one had ever done before, and that was a pretty big bonding experience. Spending 10 days doing 30-mile days and not knowing where the next water source was or the next resupply was, and just kind of making up as we went along. Kind of gives a pretty strong bond with two people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, she was telling us about that Chinook Trail. That's got to be an experience. I mean, it's one thing to go out and through hike one of these trails. There's a lot of prep and a lot of thought to go into it, and certainly a lot of exertion. But to go pioneer one of these things, like you said, not knowing where your water sources are and whatnot, it's got to add an extra element of excitement for sure.
Yeah, it definitely takes it from being kind of a walk in the woods and kind of like a walk in the park to really kind of more of an adventure and almost like expedition in some ways, and there was times we ran out of water and it was really hot and you just kind of had to put your head down and trudge through for 8 or 10 miles with no water and hope the next horse was going to be running when you got there. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great adventure and memories I think both of us will have for the rest of our lives, really.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so let's go back to the AT, your first through hike. Fill us in on that a little bit. Some of your experiences, maybe some stories, good or bad, and then there's a fun story about how you got into the whole hiking with dogs scenario.
Yeah, I mean it was good. I started out with a group of 8 people on the Appalachian Trail, and by the third day there was 3 of us left. So kind of the classic story of the Appalachian Trail eating its young. We had quite a bit of snow in 96. It was one of the wettest years in the Appalachian Trail's history. So my third morning I started out, I remember this old man rolled over and he's like, "It's going to snow today." And I was like, "Dude, we're in Georgia. It doesn't snow in the South." And by the end of that day, I was post-holing up to my crotch in deep snow from a blizzard. And it snowed for 3 days. So the Appalachian Trail is a really good learning lesson. I started with an 85-pound pack and quickly got it down to about 35 pounds.
Dang.
So... no matter how much you think I guess you're always going to learn something. And the AT taught me a lot of lessons about myself. It really helped me grow up in life. I don't think I ever would have graduated college if I hadn't gone and hiked the Appalachian Trail first, because it really set the tone for, knowing that no matter what you put your head to, you can really accomplish in life. Met a lot of characters along the way. I think through hiking's really changed in the last 20 years, that the people that used to through hike in the 90s were kind of the scallywags and scofflaws of society. They were definitely not in athleticism. It was definitely more about the journey and the experience, kind of like the Dharma bums, where 20 years later when I'm in the hiking community, I feel like I'm in an ultra marathon event with some of the people that are there and how athletic they are and the miles they can pull. So it's really quite a bit of a change. Met a lot of crazy people along the way. Spooky Boy was kind of a famous AT figure for a long time.
Spooky Boy.
He rolled up to a shelter one time at midnight and started yelling at us, calling us a bunch of punks and telling us to get out of his shelter. And then just like that, turned off his flashlight and disappeared in the night. So, we had some crazy experiences. Pretty famous trail icon who recently passed away actually hiked with me in 96. Baltimore Jack was a kind of a staple and a figure on the Appalachian Trail for 20 plus years. And in the 90s, he was still hiking. So I hiked a fair amount with him in the 90s. That was a lot of fun. And just met some really great people. I think one thing you were alluding to there, when I was in Tennessee, I found a dog that had been following my friends through the Smokies in the town of Erwin. They had brought him into Erwin, and I had shown up right behind him. And they were like, either the dog leaves tomorrow with a hiker or it's going to the pound. And so I went ahead and took that dog with me. And actually hiked with him all the way up to the Maine border. And then my parents came and got him and took him home so I could finish up and not have the hassle of not having a dog in Baxter and trying to arrange like a flight to get him home and everything. But from there, me and that dog spent 2 summers on the Appalachian Trail, ridge running together. Went to college with me, brought him out west. We did some mountaineering together. Hiked a lot in the Northwest in the Goat Rocks and Indian Heaven Wilderness areas, Mount Hood Wilderness areas. And really just having him in my life gave me a little bit more responsibility, something else besides myself to be responsible for, which I think was good. But it also really started this whole love of spending my time in the outdoors with my dogs. And so I had that dog for 13 years, and we probably hiked 5,000 or 6,000 miles together. And it was some of the best times of my life, just having me and my dog and just being out in the big wild world together is a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was looking at Erwin's page too, and Erwin's got some accomplishments too. Like he's sitting there with a can of Guinness in the picture. That's prime. I like that.
Yeah, it's a classic photo of him. I mean, I think the nice thing was, I got him. He was probably 2 or 3 years old, and I had him for 13 years. So we had a lot of really good years of hiking. But the last 3 years of his life, I just kind of let him not carry a pack and retire, and we just kind of hung out together and went rafting and canoeing and just kind of chilled out at home, and he'd sit in the backyard with me. So he's just a great dog, really all around. And, it was a lot of fun to spend a lifetime with him in the woods.
That's cool. Well, he was definitely lucky to find you for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
So what about the, some highs and lows of the AT? You have done quite a few through hikes of various trails. One, I like to hear kind of, people's personal comparisons of them, their thoughts between them, but some of the specific stuff from the AT, some good stories or experiences from that trail.
It was a long time ago. I mean, I guess, that experience, it was good. I guess some of the lows were, it's hard to think of lows 20 years later because I think time
it's all highs,
forgives
right?
forgives all grievances. But when we got into Vermont, it was really, really wet. I mean, Vermont's kind of known as Vermud, and we had a lot of rain. We only saw the sun one time in the whole time we were in Vermont, and that was in Manchester Center when we were actually at a hostel. The sun came out, so just our luck. The day we're in town, it actually is sunny. That was kind of a low. We hiked through a hurricane at one point. We were hiking through knee-deep water coming down the trail like a river at us. That got pretty old pretty quick. And actually my hiking partner kind of had a little bit of a breakdown the day before we got to Hanover and broke a hiking pole against a tree, just almost couldn't take it anymore. So I think that was probably a low point for us. When we got to the top, when we were in the White Mountains, it was a high point and a low point at the same time. We had some pretty gnarly weather going through there. But the day we got to Lake at the Clouds Hut, we had done 17 miles already. And because we had a dog, they wouldn't let us stay in the hut, even in the dungeon downstairs in the basement. So me and my hiking partner actually had to hike all the way to the summit of Mount Washington that late afternoon evening. And we convinced the last shuttle van going down Mount Washington to give us a ride. And we got a ride all the way down to Pinkham Notch. And I called a friend I hadn't spoken to in 4 years that lived about 30 minutes away in North Conway. And he actually came and picked us up in his mom's car and took us to their house. And his mom did our laundry and cooked us dinner. And we hung out with them. And the next morning, this is a great story. The next morning we got up and we were like, hey man, will you drive us back to the top of Mount Washington? Because we have to have continuous steps. And he's like, I will, but don't you ever tell my mother I drove her car up here. And fast forward 15 years later, him and I live in the same neighborhood in Portland, Oregon now. And 3 years ago at Christmas, I told his mom that story, and he still got in trouble.
Sucker. That's hilarious.
I think the highs of the Appalachian Trail, I mean, really was, a lot of the people we met in '96 was kind of the first really big years on the AT. I think they had like 2,000 people start. So really getting to meet a lot of people and people from different walks of life and different experiences, I think, at 18 is very impressionable. Met some guys who worked in Antarctica. That was pretty inspiring. Had a buddy who was an investment banker. And some, people are lifelong friends, people I still keep in touch with. I think some of the highs, on the AT, definitely like going through Max Patch and the Roan Highlands down in Virginia and the Wild Ponies. That was just such a great area. But I think more for me than anything was just, being away from home my first time, learning to be independent, learning to be self-sufficient. I mean, that was really, for me at the end of the day, when I look back at the AT, that's really like the highlight for me, is that it made me grow up and kind of become an adult at an early age, but in a good way.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was curious about it and I asked that question, because you did do it quite young, by comparison. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do wait. And that's, the experience has got to be completely different, than going out there at, 35, 40 years old and tackling it. You have a different view on life for sure.
Yeah. And, I think at 18, it's easy to power through things and, just kind of tough it out, because, you're young and just don't know any better. It's a lot different hiking 20 years later. I can tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I mean, but you also hike smarter, I think. I think I hiked this trip a lot smarter than I hiked the AT.
Well, you had an 85-pound pack.
Yeah, that's part of it. But I think also just like efficiency of walking in itself. I think when you're in your teens and your 20s, you can power through it, 4 miles an hour for 2 hours, take an hour break and do the same thing. And, when you get in your later 30s, you got to kind of settle the pace back, run at 85%. And just try to be as efficient as possible. And I think that makes a big difference in hiking and the miles you can do in the endurance you're able to endure.
Yeah, good point. That's kind of indicative of growing older in general, in life in general. Pace yourself and get through.
Through hiking really is just kind of like a commentary on life, I guess, in a lot of ways.
Right. So I got to ask everybody, of course, how did you get your name Allgood?
In the 90s, like it's all good was a pretty big catchphrase.
Of course.
And I said it a lot. And so that's kind of how it became my trail name. But I really think if, people who know me know that, I just kind of roll with the punches. I don't let too much rattle me anymore in life. And it really is all good. I mean, at the end of the day, my theory is as long as you got a relatively flat place to sleep and then it's dry, you got a warm meal and clean water, and you're like 90% better than most of the world.
Yeah, no doubt. Could be a heck of a lot worse.
Yeah. So, I mean, people, out there, I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's times, everybody wants to complain about hiking and whatever on a through hike, but the reality is it is all good. I mean, you're out doing what you love. And even a bad day is still better than the best day I ever had sitting in a cubicle. So, I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but it is really the truth, so it is really all good out there.
There's a reason why it's cliche.
Yeah, exactly.
No doubt. All right, let's talk about dogs on the trail a little bit more. So Erwin is the one you found in Tennessee and did a ton of hiking with him. Eventually he retired and has passed, of course. And then
he's actually on the Appalachian Trail still to the day.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
I went to Virginia Tech for college, and him and I spent a lot of time at McAfee's Knob hiking during the week and stuff when I was in school. So after he passed away, I went back with his ashes a year later, and me and two of my buddies from college who actually knew him really well climbed up McAfee's Knob and spread his ashes off the top of it. So
that's awesome. He's smiling down.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Totally. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times even out here on the CDT where I feel like he's walking beside me at times.
I'm sure. That is cool.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. At Livezen, it's all about making fewer, better things. It's about owning less so you can live more. It's about adventure, finding joy in the day-to-day, and living a well-worn life. And your clothing should support that journey. That's why Livezen has combined technical features, durable construction, and modern styling into functional, versatile outdoor clothing so you can take on everything that the day brings without ever having to change your pants. Go out for coffee in the morning, head to the office for the day, Finish the evening off with a post-work cragging session, all in the same outfit. When you buy Lifzen, you buy for life. You can get 10% off being a loyal listener to Adventure Sports Podcast with the code ASP10 at livzen.com. That's LIVSN.com. I'm personally a huge fan of the Flex Canvas overalls. I haven't had a great pair of overalls in a while, and I'm actually really surprised by how functional and just useful these are for my day-to-day. I like having that extra almost protection on my chest and around my belt, and I've been doing a lot of house projects lately, and this is just like almost my suit of armor I can put on. Really cool stuff, so I've become a big fan. Gets me in that like workshop mode, and I'm not afraid to wear overalls around town. So again, get 10% off by going to livzen.com, LIVSN.com, and use the code ASP10 at checkout. So, one of the stereotypes when you get older, you start really getting into birds, and it is very true for me. My wife and I are like, is that a cardinal? Is that a mockingbird? A blue jay, whatever it is, I'm really getting into birds. And what I'm very excited about is the new Feather Snap, which is a Wi-Fi enabled smart bird feeder that blends the best of technology and nature. It's this unique dual bird feeder that helps attract more species with built-in solar panels and keeps your camera battery going strong to charge the camera that's on there, and then it sends it to your phone and also identifies the birds that are going to your feeder. Me and the kids are absolutely loving it, and we've been really surprised by what's come to our bird feeder. Just for transparency, I got my mom a trail camera last year so she could see all the animals in her backyard, and the first night we saw a bear. A bear. We didn't even know there were bears. I mean, we knew, but we didn't know they were that close. And this takes it to a whole nother level because it's for people who love birds and want to understand what's in their backyard. And I think it's an awesome gift idea. It's like one of those things a lot of people wouldn't get for themselves, but it's such a cool thing to give people that they can really get excited about. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And it's just, I'm always a huge fan of bringing more of nature in and getting people more excited about the things around them. And as someone who can't be in the mountains all the time or out on an adventure, this is almost like bringing a little adventure home with you. If you want to learn more about the Feather Snap camera, go to feathersnapcam.com. That's Feathersnap, S-N-A-P, cam, C-A-M.com, where you can learn more about their cameras and open up your own window to the wild. Hey folks, this episode is brought to you by, the state of Colorado. If you didn't know, this show was born and raised in Colorado. So many of our guests and stories take place there. So many of my adventures take place there. And we hope these episodes inspire you to seek an exciting trip of your own this summer in the beautiful state of Colorado. I was just there in Aspen, went hiking. It was absolutely breathtaking. And the mountains get a lot of attention, but there's culinary adventures, outdoor adventures, entertainment and scenic outdoor venues from music festivals and film festivals and all sorts of festivals. The state has it all. Experience the thrill of mountain biking along riverside trails or hop aboard a train for a railroad adventure. It has charming mountain and historic towns and cities, historic hotels, dude ranches, and like I said before, amazing cuisine, Michelin star level dining. And on those chilly summer nights, relax in one of the hot springs. Let Colorado awaken your spirit of adventure and explore all the possibilities that the state has to offer at visitcolorado.com and uncover the magic and start planning your getaway today. Visitcolorado.com. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode.
That was cool. So then Carluck is your current dog, and you've done a ton of hiking with Carluck. And I understand Carluck's not on the CDT with you, a little bit lengthy for bringing him out there. But tell me about him.
I mean, I guess there's a couple of things. I mean, I get fielded a lot of questions through my other website, Allgood's Canine Adventures, about taking your dog on a long distance trail. And I think the Colorado Trail is probably a nice trail for a dog on a through hike. The AT, Tahoe Rim Trail, there are trails that are nice for a dog, but the CDT, I mean, after walking through New Mexico, I was like, there is absolutely no place for a dog on the CDT.
Yeah.
on a through hike. I mean, honestly, I have a black lab mix. It's like, it'd be animal cruelty to take him through New Mexico.
Oh, yeah, you throw on a black down coat and go
Right.
trekking through New Mexico.
Well, and just everything in New Mexico has a thorn and it's trying to poke you and stab you at some point. And, I have a friend who started the CDT with a guy who had a dog, and he said in the first 13 miles, the dog had 37 different prickers in him, and they had to call the shuttle to come get the dog and take him out.
Wow. Ouch.
So, and the CDT is just a long, hard trail. And, I just didn't think an 8-year-old dog really needed to put himself through that. Dogs are loyal to a fault. They'll go wherever you ask them to and hike themselves to death if you want them to. So as an owner, it's sometimes the harder and better decision to make is to leave them home than to take them with you.
Yep. No, it's a good decision.
Yeah. But he's a great dog. He's done the Tahoe Rim Trail with me. He's circled Mount Hood a couple of times. He circled Mount Adams, which is a really hard hike. Up in the Pacific Northwest, probably the hardest circumnavigation of a volcano you can do. He's done that a couple of times with me. He's climbed Mount Adams. He's climbed some other peaks with me. So he's just a great, loyal companion dog. And him and I do a lot of education work now in the Northwest, where we go out and speak to various groups or organizations about hiking with your dog, and kind of show them how a good dog handler handles a dog and what a good trail dog should be. Be friendly and obedient and kind of things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how about some tips or advice for people that are thinking, oh, geez, I never thought about that, hiking a through hike in these kind of distances with my dog. What are some things that they probably should know?
I think that one thing that they should know is, as hard as a through hike is to do on your own, when you bring a dog in the equation, it becomes that much harder, because now you're not only responsible for yourself, you're responsible for the dog. A lot of my friends on hikes we've done together, they always joke with me and say, man, I never realized how much work it was until I was sitting down eating a snack and you didn't even have your pack off because you were still getting your dog, pack off and food out and water out so they could have a break before you really got a break. So, I mean, I don't sugarcoat it. I absolutely love the companionship. I love my dog to death. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it is like having a 3-year-old child you're responsible for with you at all times. But I would say some tips are, if you're going to take your dog out, first thing is really get him conditioned. If you have a dog that's a couch potato and lays around all day and doesn't exercise, that dog's not going to have fun when you take them hiking. They're going to get pretty sore. So I always tell people kind of start small, start doing some day hikes, get your dog used to the pack, maybe in the afternoons when you're taking them for a walk, start putting some weight in there, kind of building up the miles and building up the weight so they're kind of ready to hit the trail. I think 2 things important with the pack. One, they should never be more than, they say 25% of your dog's body weight. I try to keep mine at like 13 to 15% of his body weight. So my dog's 70 pounds. He usually never carries more than 9 pounds. And then also, if you have a puppy, the big mistake I see with a lot of people is they get a puppy and immediately they want to start putting a backpack on them. And really, you shouldn't put a pack on a dog until they're at least a year old, because you need to give their growth plates time to grow and fuse together. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it can lead to early arthritis if you start putting weight on a dog too young. I would also suggest to anybody taking a dog out in the woods to look at protection for their pads. Probably the number one thing that is going to run into problems on a dog hiking is hot rocks, hot sand, something sharp, cutting a pad, and prevent the dog from able to hike. So we use booties on a regular basis by Roughwear. And if you're going to use booties, I definitely recommend trying to get them on the dog and getting them used to them before you take them out in the woods. Because the first time you put booties on a dog is one of the funniest things you'll ever see.
You definitely want to film it.
Oh, you definitely want to film it. And, if you have a dog that's very ball motivated, my dog loves to play ball. So my trick is when I put the booties on him, even if we're out in the woods, I pull out his tennis ball right away and play ball for 5 minutes with the booties on. And the desire to play ball will far outweigh the things on their feet to the point where they won't even notice them after a couple minutes. And then you can just start hiking.
That's cool. That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah. Yep. And, one other piece of advice I would have is always make sure you carry some of your dog's food and items in your pack, because I have personally had my dogs lose 2 backpacks in their lifetime. And when your dog loses his pack with all of its food, it really stinks when you're having to share your food with the dog for the next 3 days while you're out on trail.
Especially when you've just brought barely enough for yourself in the first place.
Exactly. You're both on half rations. It's not a lot of fun.
Well, once again, the dog's like a 3-year-old at that point. You can never expect them to come back with their lunch bag.
No, definitely not. And I think my old dog Erwin, I think he purposely lost his because he didn't want to wear it anymore. So
some cat stole it from him back in the woods when he wasn't looking.
yeah, exactly.
So how did Carluck get his name?
Well, Karluk is the Inuit word for fish on the BC coast, but the Karluk River is a very famous river in Alaska for their king salmon run. And before my wife and I got married, I had two of my friends take me to the Karluk River for a float trip for my bachelor party. So we spent 10 days in Alaska floating a river, salmon fishing, and I just love that name. It's a really hard name, and it's a very unique name. I think dogs should have a unique name. And when we got our puppy, my wife and I argued about what his name should be, and we just determined that Karluk was probably the best name for him.
That's good. That's fitting. I like that.
Yeah.
Very cool. So let's talk about human preparation then. Now we got the dog all outfitted and ready to wear his booties. What are some good tips for people that may be, day hikers, but haven't tackled a through hike yet?
I think, I've seen people that go, I'm going to go through hike the Appalachian Trail or the PCT, and they quit a job and they buy all the gear and they put their life on hold and they go into the PCT, and 2 weeks later they hate it and they're home. So I would think that the biggest tip I would say is if you want to get into through hiking, just like your dog, start small. There's a lot of great through hikes in the U.S. that are 300 miles or less that anybody could do with a job, with a regular, 9-to-5 job with 2 to 3 weeks of vacation. Like the Wonderland Trail in Washington is 97 miles. It's a week hike. And if you're really thinking about doing a PCT hike or a CDT hike, I would recommend trying to get out for a 1 to 3 week hike the season previous, and make sure, one, you really like being out there day after day, and two, also it's a good way to shake down all your gear and make sure the kit you think you need to have is going to work for you. And then it's just a matter of really trying to keep yourself in shape. For 16 years, I worked as a lumber broker from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. And at lunchtime, I would put a 35-pound pack on my back, and I would walk up and down the stairs for 45 minutes in our office to keep myself in shape to be able to go hike on the weekends and do 20, 30-mile days.
Really?
Yeah. So, I think that's part of it. I'd also say, get inspired. I mean, there's so many great trail journals anymore and blogs, and so many great people out there doing great things right now that, if you can find somebody that you appreciate their writing style and start reading and following them along, it's a great way to keep you motivated and keep you inspired to do some trips coming up. And I think too, it's like people need to change their mindset. I think people think of a through hike as a 6-month hike, and that's not the reality. I mean, you could do any hike as a through hiker style, basically going one direction end to end and doing it all in one push. I mean, there's the, like where I live, we have the Timberline Trail and the Lua Trail. They're, 30 something miles and 40 something miles, but you could go do a through hike of those in the weekend and it's still a through hike. I mean, you're going one direction, you're doing the whole thing in one push, and you should be proud of that. Not everybody has to walk 3,000 miles to complete a through hike.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, like you said, it's all about the inspiration. Go to the like your blog. When I was reading it earlier, it's full of inspiration because people can really get a feel for what it is they might they deal with, and about as well as the beauty that they'll experience while up there. So stuff like that. We talked about Liz Thomas. She and the Continental Divide Trail Coalition just put out the Best Hikes Continental Divide Trail Colorado edition. That's a great book. Get out there and do little sections, little pieces of it just to get a taste of it. One, if you're going to do it with a dog, take them.
Yeah, and Liz is doing her urban through hikes now, which she's gotten really,
right,
really deep entrenched with. And I used to be a big skeptic of those until she came to the Northwest and did a couple, and I hiked with her a couple of different days, and I was like, you know what? This is a great way for someone who maybe doesn't want to have to go sleep out in the woods and dig a cat hole in the morning to experience the same kind of mileage and elevation as a through hike, but do it in a different way that, is a different way of thinking about it. So I think the reality is there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. It's just a matter of what works for you and in your period of life and what you can get away with.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we did a show on her urban hiking, and I was a little set back by it. I'm like, urban hike? Why would you want to do that? But she made a lot of valid points in that episode about doing it, and I can totally see it. Especially to start to get yourself ready and see
Hmm.
if long distance hiking is for you. Plus,
Yeah,
you
and I
get
would.
to see a lot of pieces of your city or your local area that you probably wouldn't have seen just driving through at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the nice thing about thru hiking in general is it's a great way to slow down and reconnect and unplug and even like when we did our thru hike of the Chinook Trail, we walked on a road for a half a day that I've driven on 100 times to go fishing for steelhead. And I had never noticed some of the rock formations until I was walking at 3 miles an hour instead of going by them at 65.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can see at that speed.
Yeah, at human speed, you really do get a lot more detail. So it's really great.
Yep, no doubt. Well, I want to pause and take a little time or let you have a little time. I know you're sponsored and you're an ambassador for some companies and some products. So I want to give you a little bit of chance to give them a shout out and give them a plug and thank them for backing you as you're doing the CDT through hike.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. I would first really like to thank the Continental Divide Trail Coalition. I am their thru hiker ambassador this year on trail. So I am tasked with trying to set a good example for other thru hikers when they're in town and on trail. But it's been a great way to give back to the community and a great way to give back to the trail that has given me so much. Really like to give a big shout out to Montbell, one of my big sponsors. They provide a lot of clothing for me. It's kept me warm and dry on trip, and can't thank them enough. Purple Rain Adventure skirts. I know it sounds funny. I'm a big dude, and I hike in a kilt. And Mandy makes one of the best skirts out there. Gossamer gear, great packs. Catabatic quilts out of Colorado. I think right down the street from you guys. If nobody's bought one of their quilts yet or tried them, I highly recommend it. I haven't had a cold night's sleep yet. I got Tokes Outdoors, Sawyer Products, Backpackers Pantry, Yugo Bars, and Salads on Chocolate are keeping us fueled up. My hiking partners are pretty excited that I have food sponsors because hikers love food more than anything.
Yes.
Big shout out to Point Six Socks for giving me socks. I'm pretty hard on footwear, and they've had to replace a couple pairs of socks after the desert, but they've been holding up great through Colorado. Lucky Hiking Poles, 0 gram. And then back home, I know he's not with me now, but 3 long-term sponsors I've had that have always taken good care of me are Turbo Pup Meal Replacement Bars, Barker Bags, and Rough Wear Dog Gear. And I'd just like to thank all of them for keeping us going all these years.
Right on. We definitely got to hook the dogs up for sure. They need their gear as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And all those brands, for the dog stuff, they all make really good quality products. So you can't go wrong with any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about the American Long Distance Hiking Association. What's the goal of the organization? What is it you guys do? And why should people come visit it?
Well, All to West is basically our mission is to promote long distance communication and fellowship among long distance hikers and those who support them. So our main goal is really one is social aspect. It's kind of the family reunion you want to go to with your hiker family. So we have a social aspect of keeping people informed. We try to inspire people to try new trails. We bring in speakers at various times throughout the year to, speak and inspire other people to go out and try different things. We're the home of the Triple Crown Award. So those people who have completed the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail in their entirety, representing about 8,000 miles. For 21 years, we've been the home of that award, and we're the official organization that presents that award to people that apply for it. Actually, we just opened up the application process, so if any Triple Crowners out there who don't have a plaque on their wall and would like one, it's time to go ahead and apply. And I think, we've really, in the last 4 years since I took over as our president, we've been trying to transition away from just a fraternity, sorority, so to speak, of long distance hikers getting together and hanging out to really becoming more of an educational body and trying to become the voice of the American long distance hiker and trying to help educate those that want to do a long distance hike to be properly prepared to go out there and be successful and do it right. We host rucks 3 times a year. A ruck is basically a workshop where we cover all the aspects of a thru hike, from ultralight backpacking to food, nutrition, leave no trace and town etiquette, safety things. And then we have an open forum for people just to ask questions to long distance hikers and discuss, their plans for a long distance hike. And, membership's only $15 a year. It's a great organization. We put out a newsletter quarterly. In there, we have things. We just had our last Gazette just came out. You can check it out online at our website. We have an article there about whole food hiking by area zoner. We have a whole article there about trying to get long distance hikers and the American public to get engaged with their congressmen and senators and start, lobbying for your trails, for the things you love, to get your voice heard, to be able to help advocate for the trails that we all use every day. So I think Alta West in general is, for a long time, it was just kind of a party fraternity scene with the home of the Triple Crown. And now we're, becoming a lot more than we used to be.
You're growing up, huh?
We're growing up. Yeah, we're becoming adults. And the other thing is we do honor a Trail Angel of the Year every year. We have the Martin Papinick Award. And this is the 6th year that we're giving that award out. And this year it's going to the Andersons that are pretty famous on the PCT for probably the last decade plus of taking care of hikers along the way. So it's a really fun organization. We do have our annual gathering the last week in September every year. This year it's in Nevada City, California, September 29th to October 2nd. And if you've never been to a gathering, if you're thinking about going on a long distance hike, it's worth coming to. If you've done a long distance hike, you're probably going to run into some people that you know. And that is really the family reunion of the year. Kind of our signature event. We have great speakers coming out this year. We got Trauma and Pepper speaking about the Great Himalaya Trail, Fireweed speaking about the Bigfoot Trail, Zoner's talking about the Hot Springs Trail. And I know they got one other talk, and for the life of me right now, it's slipping my mind because I'm on trail. And I'm not handling things this year on that. But we had a great lineup of speakers. We had the Triple Crown ceremony on Saturday night, and it's just a really fun, inspiring weekend to come to.
Yeah, very cool. Sounds like a blast.
It is.
Well, for people looking to get more information on Thru-Hiking and how to get started and more details about it, visit the American Long Distance Hiking Association West page, which is aldhawest.org. And of course, in Colorado, I always have to give a shout out to the Continental Divide Trail Coalition, which is continentaldividetrail.org. Go to either one of those sites and gather tons of information and learn about getting out on the trail yourself. So hopefully we've inspired people to check them out and get out and try some of this on their own.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So 2 things you mentioned there I want to dig into just a little bit. You give a Trail Angel Award. Explain what a Trail Angel is to some of those that might not know Thru-Hiking.
Okay, so a Trail Angel is someone who's not a hiker, but someone either from the community or a random stranger that goes out of their way to make a hiker's life easier. And it could be anything from a ride into town on a really hard hitch to taking you into their home and feeding you a meal and doing your laundry and letting you sleep at their house. There's all different various ones. Most of the Trail Angels of notoriety have been people that over the years have hosted people at their homes or done water caches through the desert, things of that nature. And, it takes a very special person who's not a hiker or who used to be a hiker to dedicate their time, energy, and effort to want to help people that are basically on a 6-month walkabout, because they want to be walking. And Trail Angels really make your life a lot easier. And it doesn't seem important at the time, but at the moment that they're there, it's the most important thing in the world when they're helping you out.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah, you guys do really rely on perfect strangers while you're doing this because you can't, it's like just hailing a ride into town to resupply or, if you don't have a friend in the area, somebody you can call, then you have to take that chance, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and there's some, the CDT doesn't have a ton of Trail Angels, but 2 in particular or 3 that have really helped out so far. Nita, who's, Nita LaRonde of the Toaster House down in Pie Town. She's been helping CDT hikers for 20 years. I mean, she's just went out of her way to make sure I was well taken care of. Carla Rockmore down in South Fork, Colorado, really just coming on the scene the last couple of years, helping out hikers. She actually got her town, the community, to buy 4 mountain bikes for thru hikers to use when they're in town to be able to go to the grocery store and run errands and stuff.
That's great.
So, I mean, that's a pretty awesome person right there. And she's taken some hikers into her house and letting them stay and feeding us dinner and things like that. And Let It Be over in Pagosa Springs, just on the other side of Wolf Creek Pass, almost a quadruple Triple Crowner. a guy I've known for 20 years, met him when I was through hiking the AT. We hiked quite a bit together when he was through hiking that year too. He's letting hikers stay at his house and helping them get rides back up to the pass and everything else. So the CDT doesn't have a lot of trail angels, but the ones that are out there are all very solid and really going out of their way to make people's lives easier.
Oh, wow, a quadruple triple crowner. That's some serious miles.
Yeah, he's done some serious miles over the years, that guy. I think he told me he's like 700 miles away on the AT and 500 on the CDT from finishing it up. So
that's great. Good for him.
Yeah. Yep.
So let's talk about Triple Crown a little bit. We all know that a Triple Crown is, somebody that's completed the AT, the PCT, and the CDT. But how do you said you have to apply for it. Is this something you need to prove that you've done, or is it kind of honor system, or essentially people are like, yeah, no, I saw him on the trail and we all know him. Of course he did it.
When the Triple Crown started 20 years ago, it was pretty easy for them to know who had done the Triple Crown because there was a lot less thru hikers.
Right.
So it was just kind of like people knew who had gotten Triple Crowns. They would just give them a Triple Crown. As the community's grown and things have changed and different people have run the award, we've tried to, verify hikes, but frankly, we're a group of volunteers. We're a group of hikers, and we don't really have time to worry about, if somebody skips 7 miles or not. So we do it on the honor system. We do ask that, people just have continuous footsteps. So, our feeling is, if you hitchhiked, 150 miles of a trail, you probably shouldn't apply for a Triple Crown. You should know better, but we're not the hiking police either. So we do it on the honor system, and we ask that people just be honest. We feel thru hikers are pretty good people, and those that are going to apply for Triple Crown are probably the ones that, are going to be honest about it.
Yeah, probably. So to get the Triple Crown or to qualify as through hiking one of these trails, do you have to do it all in one shot, or can you section hike?
No. Yeah. I mean, we don't recognize race, age, speed, slowest, fastest, through hike, section hike, flip flop. We don't recognize any of that. We've had people that has taken them 20 years to hike the Appalachian Trail, and we've had other people that have done all 3 trails in 1 year. So we don't care. We just want you to have completed all 3 trails when you apply for a Triple Crown.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's the rate that I'll have to get it. Maybe when I get, about 85 and, I might have completed it by then.
Well, I'm working on the second part of my Triple Crown, and it's been 20 years. So I'm just hoping it's not 20 more before I hike the PCT.
Exactly.
Otherwise, I might actually get the record for the longest time it took someone to get a Triple Crown.
Oh, whatever. That could be a 1 too, right? There should be an award for that.
Exactly.
So is this your first time on the CDT, or have you section hiked certain pieces of it?
No, this is it. I came last year. I went to the first kickoff that they had in Silver City. My good friend Shira was the hiking ambassador last year for CDT, and I gave her a ride down to the kickoff, represented Alta West, and then came home. So I had never hiked on the CDT before until now. The only experience I'd ever had in the Rockies was I went to Philmont when I was a Boy Scout when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
And besides that, I'd never hiked in the Rockies. I'd always hiked in the Cascades or on the East Coast or the Sierras.
So you're working on the PCT currently. You do some section hiking of that. How much of that have you completed?
Fair amount of Oregon and Washington and the Sierra portions of California.
Okay.
Still got a long way to go. Probably what will probably happen is I'll probably do a thru hike at the PCT in the next couple of years.
So how would you've been on all 3, at least good portions of the PCT and CDT now, and you've, of course, thru hiked the AT. How would you compare them? Which would you say is your favorite? Or I know they're very different trails. I mean, the AT is, pretty crowded when it comes to a thru hiking trail, and the CDT being fairly rugged and harder to navigate. PCT sitting somewhere in between. So how would you kind of compare them and contrast them?
Well, I think the Appalachian Trail to me is the trail that I think everyone should hike. I mean, it is crowded, all right, but it is also a social experiment to some degree of learning to be with other people and tearing down barriers and misconceptions. And the people are what make the AT fun, actually. That social aspect is what makes the Appalachian Trail a really unique experience. But it's also the trail that's kind of the granddaddy trail. And all the thru hiking culture originated on the Appalachian Trail. When Earl Schaefer thru hiked the Appalachian Trail, he didn't know what he was setting off really in motion for the rest of the world. but all of the terminology and the purism versus the blue blazer and the yellow blazer, I mean, all of that comes from the AT. So to me, it's almost like you got to do the AT to understand the culture of through hiking to some degree. The PCT is changing a lot right now. It's a trail in flux. I think it's trying to find its way. It's nicer walking. The AT is really tough walking. The PCT, I mean, it's graded for mules, so the walking's easier. It's nicely graded. It's nicely marked. But you don't have the shelter, so you can have a total wilderness experience. You could hike out of season. You could do a flip-flop and not have the crowds of the AT. But I've seen the PCT culture in the last couple of years really, a lot of the AT social aspects are coming over to the PCT right now. But it is nice walking on the PCT. The CDT, I mean, it's like comparing apples to oranges with the other two trails. There is a trail, and I'm actually surprised at how well marked the CDT has been through New Mexico and Colorado so far. I had visions of being lost every day, and I've been lost. Like, there was one section where I got lost like 6 times in 2.5 days, but that was either because I had my head down and wasn't paying attention, or there was a bunch of blowdowns and I got confused in the woods.
Right.
But for me, the CDT, the cool thing about the CDT is that it is really make your own adventure. I mean, there is the official route that is a line on a piece of paper, and there is a trail you can take. But there's also all these alternates and decisions and choices you get to make every day, where you get to decide, hey, do I want to walk this alternate down the Gila River and go, through the river 250 times, or do I want to go up in the Black Range and be dry and hot? And to me, that's the fun of the CDT. Nobody's holding your feet to the fire saying you have to walk this 6-inch wide corridor, for the next 2,000 miles. It's pretty much like, hey, you're going to go from Mexico to Canada through the Rockies, and here are your options to do it.
This is roughly how you're going to do it.
This is roughly how you're going to do it. I mean, they say no two people hike the same CDT, and I absolutely believe that. I've been hiking with the same guy from the start, but there are days that he wound up going cross country one way, or I got lost and wound up going some other way, or we haven't even walked the same trail, and we've been together the entire time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, your navigation skills are about ready to be put to the test to some degree as you head north out of Colorado.
That is what I've been told too. That Wyoming I heard is pretty well marked, but Montana and Idaho can be the Bearcat of navigation for most CDT hikers. Although it's cool, gotten a lot easier. We still use the map and compass a fair amount during the day, but Guthook and Jonathan Lay's PDF map app. Just the two of those just make it pretty easy to find yourself on a map and then be able to take a look at the paper map and figure out where you're going from there.
Yeah, right.
So,
well, carry the proper tools with you and don't rely on too much technology, right?
Yeah, I think with the CDT, it's one of those things. It's like it is a tougher trail to navigate and get through, and having every resource available at your fingertips is actually the best way to go. So, I mean, we got PDF maps, we got Gaia, we have 3 different GPS options. We got paper maps, we got a compass, we got notes from friends who've gone previous years. You got a water report, and it's kind of your job to take all that information and compute it in your head and decipher what's best for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's a more challenging hike in a lot of ways. It makes you think more. Definitely pushes your limits a little bit more, and it's a tougher trail. Just at the end of the day, I mean, it really is. I mean, I think, they say embrace the brutality, and yeah, I mean, it's brutal at times, but it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
Every single day you go through something tough, the reward is higher than anything I've ever had before in a hike too.
Yeah. You're like, dang, I did that. Yeah. I conquered that. I got through it. That's part of it.
And just things that are surprising too. I mean, New Mexico was one of the most diverse states I've ever walked through my entire life. I was blown away at the diverse ecosystems of New Mexico every day.
Yeah, if you don't spend time down there, you just kind of imagine it's very arid, desert-like, and it's not. It does diversify quite a bit.
Yeah, it's got, mountains, it's got rivers, it's got giant old-growth sycamore trees and cottonwoods, it's got these awesome sandstone canyons and mesas. I mean, it's just a really amazing place to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, I was on your blog. I noticed you had the most ginormous, most disgusting blister on your foot that I have ever witnessed. So begs the question, how do you deal with your feet? How do you take care of them? Obviously, you've done a lot of this and you still got this growth. But
yeah, I don't, I live in the Pacific Northwest, so prior to coming to the CDT, I didn't really have an opportunity to go out and like toughen my feet up hiking, because even if I did, it was all wet. They're just soggy, they're just pruny. So I think the thing with blisters, everybody has their own opinion. You get a blister on trail, 30 people are going to give you 30 different opinions what you should do.
Right.
My theory always used to be to pop every single blister possible. Until I had a couple friends who were surgeons, and they were like, that is the worst thing you can actually do. So my feeling with the blister is, taking care of my feet, is one, when we were in New Mexico, I tried to wash my feet 2 to 3 times a day. I just carry like a little blue sponge in a plastic bag and just use a little water and clean my feet. I change my socks and try to rinse my socks out if I could once a day, and like put on a dry pair and let the other pair dry out. But when I get blisters, if they don't bother me when I'm walking, I just leave them. I figure try to keep them clean. Don't pop them if they don't have to be, if they're not bothering you. And then elevate your feet at night so they try to reabsorb as much as possible. And eventually that would become a callus. But if they do bother you and they are hurting you a lot, at that point I drain them, and then I take a mixture of an iodine alcohol tincture, and I cut a little slip with a pair of scissors and I drop it right down in there, and it stings like hell, but it'll definitely keep it from getting infected and toughen it up.
Okay. So it's not so much trying to prevent the blisters as it is the knowledge to deal with them once you get them, because you're going to get them.
Yeah, I just think the reality is, for anybody who's going on a hike, if you've been sitting at a desk for a month or 3 months, or you haven't been hiking 20-mile days, and you put on a pack and go walk 20-mile days day after day, you're going to get some blisters. That's just the reality. Everybody out here gets a blister at some point or the other. And I think just knowing how to manage them and deal with them is better than just thinking I'm going to prevent them 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, that thing you had, I swear to God, that was like a flotation device at the bottom.
Oh yeah, it had like we were joking. And the thing is, like, you think that one's bad. Going into Pie Town, I got one in the arch of my foot that day. I did a 36.5-mile day in a Pie Town, and I got one the last probably 12 miles that was so big on the arch of my foot I didn't know if I could finish hiking that day. But when it did pop, it was like orgasmic. It felt so good when it finally popped that day. But I've had some pretty big gnarly blisters, and I just kind of power through, and know that they're going to get better and turn into calluses, and they have. I mean, pretty much now my feet are just all calloused up.
Yeah,
so.
I bet. Yeah. All right, we'll stop grossing people out and move on. All right, I got 2 more for you. So,
sure.
One, what's the best piece of gear that you've discovered is invaluable on the trail that people wouldn't have thought about?
That's a really good question. You know what it probably is? Probably my sit pad. So I have a Gossamer Gear backpack, and in the back of my backpack there's a foam pad that's the padding, but you can pull it out and sit on it. And you wouldn't think that would be the most important piece of gear, but every single break for 2 months, that thing has come out and patted my behind to stay comfortable, whether we were in the desert or whether we're in the snow. It's great in the snow for insulation. And it's just a really handy thing. It's easy to get in and out of your pack, and it's just a great little cheap, inexpensive piece of gear that keeps you comfortable all day long.
No, that's a good point. I can completely relate to that. My major adventure hobby is, I think you refer to it, let me see, loosely translated as one of the American lazy hiking devices. So this is the thing with 2 wheels and an engine, so I like to go out, do adventure riding. And
perfect. There you go. Yes, I did refer to it as that.
Yes.
Hiking for lazy people, I call it.
That's right. No, I agree with you. I do like hiking, but if I have short, limited time, this is how I go out and cover a lot of ground. But anyway, point being is I do carry, when I do trips like that, I do carry a tiny little chair with me, because if you're at a campsite, you don't want to be sitting on logs and stuff after be sitting on that motorcycle all day. So I can relate to your sit pad.
Yeah. Yep,
absolutely. Okay, so the final one, and then I'll let you go and let you get some rest and get on the trail for tomorrow. But
all right,
if you had to pick one favorite story of all the through hikes, all the adventures you've done, can you come up with one?
The favorite story?
Mm-hmm. Something good, something inspirational, something that makes us want to, click off the computer and get out there and try it.
All right. Well, it's kind of a sadistic story, but I'll tell you my favorite story.
Oh, the blister wasn't.
This is not, no, the blister was child's play compared to this.
Great.
So 3 years ago for summer solstice, me and my dog Carla decided to take a trip down to Bull of the Woods and Opal Creek wilderness areas in Oregon, which are famous for some of the biggest old growth trees in the United States that are left intact. So I drove down there on a Friday night after work, and we hiked in about 4 miles, set up camp, went to sleep, got up the next morning at 5 a.m. We were going to do a 26-mile day to some lakes, and then the next day do a 15-mile day out to the car. So we started going. We got to the top of a mountain pretty early in the day, and I checked the weather on my phone, and I saw that there was thunder showers predicted for that evening and all through the next day with heavy rain and all. And I was like, I don't really want to be having to pack up a wet tent tomorrow morning and slog out in the rain. So I decided to kind of shorten the trip and make this other loop over this other mountain and camp about 5 miles from the car and hike out the next morning, a shorter day. So ran out of water. There was a spring and a half a mile. Got in the pack after eating lunch, and we started hiking. I got about a quarter mile down trail, and it was pretty brushy trail. This trail hadn't been maintained or hiked on yet in the season. And so it was about knee-deep brush. And I came off a rock, and I came down on my left ankle with all my weight, and I actually thought I broke my ankle. That's how hard I came down on it. And I actually screamed out in pain because it hurt so bad, and kind of propped myself back up and kind of went, oh no, what am I going to do? And got my breath about me, got my composure. Was like, all right, first things first, go get water because you got no water. So I limped a quarter mile to get water. Filled up every water vessel I had, every water vessel the dog had. And I had so much fear that if I stopped, I could never start hiking again.
Right.
Once I got the water, we just kept walking. And got about another quarter mile down the trail and just got into blowdowns for the rest of the day. And when I'm talking blowdowns, I'm talking old growth, northwest blowdowns. And just one after the other, like every 150, 300 feet, there was a blowdown. And Carluck was really awesome. He would run up to a blowdown and turn and look at me, and then he'd like find a way over the blowdown, go on the other side, and turn around and look at me. And if I didn't start going over the blowdown, he would come back over the blowdown, run behind me, nudge my knee.
Really?
Yeah, and then go back over the blowdown and wait for me. So we did this for miles and miles. And then when we got in areas where there weren't blowdowns and we were hiking, I was moving pretty slow. He would come up behind me and nudge the back of my knee with his head gently to kind of keep me going. So about 10 miles into the 13, 14 miles up to get to the car, there was a 3-mile descent, and my ankle was killing me. So I stopped, and I was like, I got to put some kind of wrap on this thing because I don't think I'm going to make it otherwise. And I opened my backpack and I pull out my first aid kit, and my ace bandage wasn't in there because my wife and I had gone hiking previous fall. It was my first hike of the season this year, and I didn't replace the ace bandage. I give it to her for her knee.
Oh no!
So luckily, Carluck's pack had vet wrap, so I slipped like the back end of my shoe off, used vet wrap and duct tape to wrap my ankle as best I could, and started limping down this mountain for 3.5 miles, and finally got to a jeep road. We were able to get to the car, but I fell on my ankle at 12:30 in the morning. And it was 8:45 at night when I got to my car, and I'd only done 13.5 miles.
Oh, man.
And it was definitely the hardest, most painful day of hiking I've ever had. I was laid up for like 4 weeks afterwards. I had to go to the doctor. They actually told me if I had broke, it would have been better. But the thing that kept me going the whole time was I had my spot in my backpack. And I was like, I can't hit my spot.
Not hitting that button.
I was like, if I hit that button, I am never going to hear the end of it from all my friends at home. That I went out on a hike, like a gentle weekend hike, and I had to hit my spot because I busted my ankle.
Right.
So I just kind of gutted it out. And, luckily I had the dog there. The dog, honestly, in that situation was like the lifesaver of the day. So of all my stories of everything I've done, that's definitely probably the one that inspires me the most because all day long I just kept slogging along in a ton of pain. I just kept thinking of like Ernest Shackleton and Douglas Mawson and all the early Antarctic explorers. And I was like, those guys went through way worse than this. You just got to gut it out and make your way.
No, I get it. That's I can see where that'd be an inspirational story for you. And I'm picturing a bunch of listeners right now thinking, wait a minute, that's supposed to inspire me to get out and try that? That can happen to me. I'm gonna sit here and watch the Food Network. Never mind.
Well, I would say the other inspiring is, the random acts of kindness that strangers provide for you on trail is worth alone to get out there.
There you go.
Just on the CDT this year, we came out of the Gila River. And, for those who don't know, the Gila River is a beautiful canyon in New Mexico. But on the CDT, you cross it 252 times. And that water is pretty daggone cold in April when you're going through it. It's all snow melt and the temperature's cold in the morning. You're in a canyon with no sun. It's pretty chilly. And you come out of there and you hike up to a mesa, and there's a place called Snow Lake. And we were hiking up to Snow Lake. It was like a Tuesday afternoon. And there was one camper there packing up. And Buttercup turned to me in his thick German accent and goes, "She is preparing the trail magic." And we rolled up. There were 6 of us at the time. And we said hi to her. And there was a random bag of food sitting by the privy that somebody had left. And it had like 3 cans of potted meat, Vienna sausages, chili, chips, and a loaf of 4 slices of bread. Oh, and a can of Spam. And we picked it up. And we're like, "Oh yeah, we'll totally eat this." And the lady kind of looked at us appalled. And then she was like, "Do you guys want more food?" And we're like, "Sure." And 5 minutes later, she was over there giving us shrimp cocktail with cocktail sauce, homemade brownies, and Munster cheese. And we just had this giant feast at Snow Lake for an hour. And it was the best trail magic I've ever had on trail.
Yeah, that's cool. You're like, I'm not leaving this spot, man.
No, totally not. It was just this total random act. And the lady was just super sweet, nice. And, it's just she didn't have to go out of her way to do that. She could have just loaded up her cooler and just driven home with all that food and eaten it herself that night. But, she went out of her way to make sure we got all that food. And I just think that was just a great, great experience of human kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is cool to know that people are out there. We have we can end up being jaded and get such a poor view on the society and the world sometimes just because what we see in the news. But to hear stories like that, you're like, okay, yeah, people really are truly good.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing about this hike I would say in particular. It's when I was 18 and through the AT, you're pretty bright-eyed and naive to the world and the way it works to some degree. And that's a great way to go through life too, to some degree. But 16 years of working in the lumber business, sitting in a cubicle as a 100% commission-based broker, I got pretty cynical. And I would say the CDT has definitely opened my eyes up to, working with the universe, giving yourself up to it, and kind of restore my faith in humankind and people out there. And it's been a really good, life-changing thing. And you don't have to do it for 6 months. You can do it for 2 weeks and get the same thing, honestly.
Yeah. Well said. Well, if that's not enough inspiration right then and there, then I don't know what is. That's I like it. Perfect.
All right,
man. Well, awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your through hike and the CDT to sit down and talk with me and get some rest tonight and carry on and be safe out there and have a blast. I'm jealous.
All right. Thanks a lot, Travis. Appreciate you having me on tonight.
All right, Whitney. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
You too.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to grow in the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.